Europa Universalis IV starts on the 11th of November 1444, a day after the famous Battle of Varna, which saw the complete collapse of the Crusader armies led by Vladislav III of Poland at the hands of Murad II, former Sultan and commander of the Ottoman troops. This was, by all accounts, the last attempt of Christendom to push out the Ottomans from the Balkans. This also set in motion a chain of events that led to the collapse of the Byzantine Empire in 1453 with its conquest by Mehmed the Conqueror, as we know him, the son of Murad II, the same commander and former sultan that defeated the Crusaders at Varna. In Europa Universalis IV, the Ottoman Empire starts as clearly the strongest nation in the game, and it does claim this title of strongest nation for a variety of reasons. First off, its position is absolutely crucial, tied in between the Islamic world and Christendom. The Ottoman Empire has the ability to pretty much avoid aggressive expansion by pushing into one side, waiting for the aggressive expansion to go down. Whilst that's happening, they can attack the other side of their empire and just expand continuously, since no coalition will ever form that's strong enough to take down the Ottomans. Economically, it also starts with a pretty decent income, plus it has the Constantinople trade node, which is a semi-end trade node. Once you reach 100% trade power in Constantinople, which is pretty easy to do, you can basically stop trade from filtering down into Europe anymore. And the best and most important reason why it's overpowered is the mission tree, which allows it to easily conquer pretty much the entirety of the world if it wants to, with some of these missions being insanely overpowered, and the last mission giving an extra 5% admin efficiency. You also get the ability to start a secondary golden age, the Islamic second golden age. You have tons of unique government reforms, and you even have the ability to make the Mamluks your subject with the simple click of a button. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get one stability, so we start getting the passive prosperity boost in our provinces, which eventually would lead to us getting an increase in our economy and the ability to play toll if that's what we want by developing provinces. The Ottomans also have some unique abilities such as assigning pashas, which give local bonuses but increase the local autonomy, and also the ability to recruit janissaries, which in turn costs us some military mana points. I'm actually going to recruit 10 janissary units since I need to do one of my early missions. Of course, janissaries can only be recruited from heathen provinces like the Orthodox provinces that we have. So now that we got the 10 janissaries, we also can get the plus 10 morale of armies, as well as we can do refill the Ortas, giving a permanent claim on every Turkish province in Anatolia and the Mashriq. So if you go to our diplomatic map mode, we essentially can attack all of these bad boys as soon as possible. Karaman's the exception here since we do have a truce with them for 5 years. Privilege wise, we're only going to give 3 privileges early in the campaign, namely the +1 mana privilege for all 3 of the estates, and we're going to be seizing crownlands afterwards. We're not giving anything else for now because we need to have as low as possible of influence, since the lower the influence, the more crownlands we get when we start taking provinces from our neighbors. I'm also going to be slackening recruitment, plus we're going to be recruiting a general, and of course we're going to give him a historical Ottoman name, John Sinologlu, a totally Turkish bro. Goes without saying we will be enforcing religious unity, denouncing the sex practices, and adopting the title of Mia Khalifa. This will allow us to convert the heretical province of Sivas. We will need to take 1 loan in order to be able to get the urban event to trigger. Otherwise, if we don't have at least 1/3 of our yearly income in the treasury, then the event does not trigger and we don't get the guns of urban with which we'll be crushing the Byzantine walls. Victory over the Varna Crusade, we gain 25 power projection and 100 splendor from having defeated the Crusaders. We also get the siege engineer urban within the first month since we have the money available to pay for him now, and he is 75% cheaper for our country to employ, as well as he allows us to crumble the walls of Constantinople once we start sieging them. This also means that we are going to be getting permanent claims on the entirety of the Balkans, which is under control of the Byzantines or the Epirites for that matter. 11th of December 1444, the war for the last of the Roman holdouts has begun. Make sure we assign our leaders in charge of these armies so we can easily crush what's left of the Byzantines. And by hiring Karl Urban as our advisor, we also can do the Guns of Urban, which will spawn 4 cannons in Edirne, which are also free. So we can use these cannons to essentially capture every single fortification extremely fast. Only 2 nations have this ability. The Ottomans and the French can get cannons before military tech 7, which makes makes them, in my opinion, ridiculously overpowered. Can we get an F, please, for the brave Byzantines defenders? They managed to take down with them 667 of our troops, so clearly they did a great job. And because we did get Karl Urban, we are gonna get the walls of Constantinople to shudder. I am strategically bringing my units into the south because we're gonna be attacking Epirus next. We need to clean the Balkans ASAP so we make space for more baklava shops. That's right, the real reason we're conquering the Balkans is so we can establish our very first baklava franchise. It's called Sweet Ludi, and you totally do get diabetes if you eat more than two. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get an admiral too, since I would like to not get my ass handed to me by the various Byzantine and Epirate ships. And speaking of, we're also gonna be building some more galleys to do another one of our missions. We're basically doing a reverse Ottoman here by trapping the Epirate troops in Cephalonia and just wiping them out. Normally, that's what people do when they fight against the Ottomans, as the Byzantines or whichever other minor nation here trap the Ottoman troops on an island and basically siege down the rest of the Ottoman Empire. Nowhere to hide, Byzantium. I'm afraid this is the end of the world as we know it. Alright, Constantinople, it's time to fall. Enough of the shenanigans. Time to become Turkish once and for all. 157 days, because indeed, the Ottomans are just that freaking overpowered. We're going to be sending our cannons to help siege down Arta and everything else in the southern parts of Greece, and we're going to assemble the rest of the army to start going into Anatolia. We could, of course, make most of these nations our vassals diplomatically, but honestly, I cannot be bothered with that. So I'm just going to be co-belligerating everybody and wiping everybody from the face of the planet because I can, and I'm a bully. I'm playing as the Ottomans. What do you want from me? And it looks like our troops have completely decimated the brave Chandari defenders. And of course, 71%, because it's not a Ludi video without at least one fortification going to a ridiculously high amount and not falling. Thank you, Arta. About freaking time. Let's use these artillery pieces now to take the last holdout of the Byzantines in Morea, and we can send over the rest of the army to Anatolia to hasten the wars against Dulkadir, Ramazan, and Chandar. We don't negotiate with e-pirates, so we're going to be fully annexing Epirus, which also means we got 1.1% crownlands from just two lonely provinces here. And it seems like the Byzantines actually unconditionally surrendered, which is perfect. That means we have won a very, very easy war. Because we also have 50% or more of the trade in Constantinople, we can integrate Galata, getting rid of the negative modifier this province had when it was under Byzantine hands. Since we have 10 galleys, we can get an admiral with 50 tradition. This would have come in handy earlier before I actually recruited Monsieur Cheleb, since apparently he's also a really, really good admiral. We're also guaranteeing the independence of Ragusa. I'm actually going to cancel that. I don't need to waste my Diplo relation slot. And instead, we're going to get some potential allies and future subjects around the area. The Merchant Republic of Genoa would like to get exclusive trading privileges through the Bosphorus, and instead I'm gonna just get claims on their provinces because it's time for the Genoese to realize the Ottoman Empire is the only nation allowed to trade in the eastern parts of the Mediterranean. With the added galleys, we've taken back control of the sea, so we can do a blockade on Sinop, which in turn means we're gonna take this fort a little bit faster. Our percentage went from 0 to 14% simply by blockading the coastline of the city of Sinop. Historically speaking, cannons, despite only being in our little game available to the Ottomans and the French, the reality is very different, as most nations at the time within Europe, as well as the Ottomans and a few other Middle Eastern nations, did have cannons and were quite actively using cannons, albeit not as much as they started using within the next 100 years. And what Urban did for the Ottomans is he sold the famous Bombard, which was a sizable cannon that was easier to take down the walls of Constantinople with. So personally, I would like to see in Europa Universalis 5 the addition of cannons from the start of the campaign in 1337, rather than having to wait for these cannons for quite some time. Especially since, tactically speaking, it does make a massive difference having cannons earlier on. Is this like hard scripted whenever Ludi's playing to go over to 1000% fort sieges? This is the thing in Victoria 3, like all my laws get passed so freaking slow. I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, actually, we are starting to get a small coalition of Karaman and Akoyunlu, because both of these are Turkish primary culture nations within the same region and of the same religion, which is why they will of course get more aggressive expansion when we annex nations that are their primary culture, their primary religion. Because we are at peace, we can make Constantinople our capital, which automatically changes the culture and the religion to ours, adds a lot of development. We gain one stability, it turns Constantinople into a core, and we become Ottoman Empire. So we saved a good 100 and something admin from not having to core this province up. Plus, because it is our capital, of course, the autonomy is going to go down to 0. And speaking of autonomy, we're going to be doing the same. We're going to be lowering the autonomy in every single one of our provinces because we had only 5% crownlets. For the past 3 years, our autonomy has slowly been going up in all of our provinces. But seeing as we are back up to 12% crownlets, we're not really getting that much monthly autonomy change. We can also do the City of the World's Desire mission, which allows us to get even more development and bonuses in Constantinople and foreign nation. And we can do a reign in Greece, meaning every Greek province we have loses 100% autonomy and 20 years of separatism, basically rendering useless the fact that I lowered the autonomy a couple of seconds ago. So do not make the same mistake I made. Click this button before you lower the autonomy. We also gained permanent claims on the entirety of the Balkans now, so whenever we are ready to attack the Serbs, Albanians, and everybody else here, we have the means to do so. We do start with a truce with the Serbs until 1449, so we have to be a little bit patient though. I also want to point out that normally we would have gotten the claims on the rest of the Anatolian region by now, but because with the last patch they made the province of Chanik Pontic Orthodox, we do not have 30 possible Turkish culture provinces until we take down Karaman. So there have been some changes with the more recent patches, but nothing too drastic. We've sealed our temporary alliance with Karakoyunlu, and we apparently also got 50 admin points, so that's going to come in handy. I believe that's going to give us one more core. Beautiful. The Mamluks have attacked Akoyunlu, and we cannot let that stand. We will be helping our Turkish brothers in Akoyunlu by attacking the Mamluks ourselves. Looks like the Tunisians also want to get an alliance. I'm going to temporarily accept this alliance because I do have some interest in North Africa, and I would not mind actually the Tunisians to help me out in fulfilling said interests. We're also going to seal the alliance with the Crimeans so we can turn them into our subject via another one of our missions, the Crimean Destiny here. We have to start currying favors with them to ensure that they will become our tributary. As for the last alliance, we're going to do the most unholiest of things. We're going to get an alliance with the Kingdom of France, which for some reason is actually friendly towards us. So I'm going to take advantage of that and make sure that I have a friend in Europe that I can use against the Castilians eventually. Are they rivaled? They are rivaled. Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. The French and the Turks actually do have events to become allies later in the campaign, and historically were allied to fight against the Central European superpowers, namely the Holy Roman Empire, led by the Austrian crown of the von Habsburg. I have set Halab as my war target, but I kind of regret doing so. I think it would have been smarter for me to set Antakya as the primary war target instead, since it is significantly less development, and we do not want to take a 22 development province when we can take literally 3 provinces instead. I think it's also time we start giving out the rest of the privileges, starting with the 2 Janissary privileges that allow me to get this particular event, making the Janissaries slightly more loyal. The Janissaries are one of the greatest assets of the Ottomans in the early campaign, but as the 1600s come about, we will struggle with keeping the Janissaries under control, but that is a lesson for another time. Say if we get 5,000 likes on today's video, then we can of course do the second part where we go into the 1550s, 1600s and explain what exactly you're supposed to be doing with the Janissaries. The fall of Al-Karak pretty much consolidates our conquest of the Mamluk lands. All we need to take now is Cairo, and then we can enforce our demands. Al-Karak having been the actual last proper stronghold, since it is a mountain fort compared to Cairo, which is a farmless fort. If we like to, we can also order an artillery barrage, which will break the walls and allow our units to assault any of the fortifications, but we don't need to do so because look at that, we just broke the walls without having to even assault it, because that's just how overpowered our nation is. In fact, the O in Ottomans does really stand for overpowered. Look at that, we got Cairo. Okay, it's actually a joke. We're gonna be going for the snakiest of snakes imaginable. We're gonna go all the way to the border with Medina so we can attack Medina after this war. 138, 110, and of course no coalition because nobody is silly enough to actually fight against us. Now we're gonna send 10,000 of these units to the Tripoli flank, and the rest of the army we're gonna send over to the Holy Lands. We also can now do the mission defeat the Mamelukes, giving the Ottoman invasion casus belli on the Mamelukes, which lasts for 50 years. And with this casus belli, when we attack the Mamelukes and we've taken the city of Cairo, as well as we've held the city of Cairo for 3 years, automatically they will become our eyalet. But we have to wait for 15 years for the truce to finish. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna be attacking Medina, which is guaranteed by the Mamelukes. So we're gonna have a significant significantly short a truce with the Mamelukes by only asking for some money from them. Also, this mission gives us permanent claims on quite a few areas in the Middle East, which means we can attack Medina right now. We do not need to get a claim, and as such, we're back at war with the Mamelukes. Let's go ahead and turn around and go back to Cairo so we can get this quick truce. The only problem we have now is that our cores stop progressing until we finish the war with the Mamelukes, so we need to make sure that we finish this really fast. The faith of the Holy City, we have the option of increasing the Holy City of Jerusalem's monument level by 1, or we can get until the end of the game -5 idea cost. It's a no-brainer. Go for the second option, obviously. This -5 idea cost is insanely overpowered, especially if you get it really early in the campaign. Cairo has fallen, so we can do that peace deal. Now it's only going to be until September 1460, a massive improvement over the 1467 that we had to wait otherwise. Plus, now we can also take care of the rebels because we do have quite a few rebels around our lands. Let's check which is the highest development province in Karaman. Apparently that is Karaman itself. Set that as the war target and attack the Karamanids. A wise man once said, it's impossible to get a coalition if everybody around you stops existing, and that's basically the principle by which our nation is directing itself right now. The biggest issue we're facing is just the lack of admin points more than anything in this campaign. With Karaman down, we can do a conquest of the Beyliks, so now we can of course attack Akoyunlu too. Better yet, what's left of Akoyunlu. Looks like Karakoyunlu had a little bit of a buffet. Oh, actually I completely forgot about the Balkans. Let's attack Kosovo because we really need to take this province for strategic gold having reasons. Plus, we don't want to see the Hungarians expand too much in this area, do we now? Speaking of, it seems Hungary just became a personal union, or better yet, an incorporated personal union of the Austrian crown, so the gloves are off. The historic alliance of France Ottomans against the vile Central Europeans will be put to the test soon enough. By conquering Medina, we also have access now to Shamar, Najd, and other areas of the Arabian lands, which we would not have had otherwise. If we were to just make the Mamelukes a core eyalet, we would have struggled a little bit more to get access to these areas afterwards. We're also now able to get the level 2 government reform, and we will be going for the Devshirny system, which is a unique mechanic available to the Ottomans. If we scroll over down here, we have 3 interactions now. We can get a vassal manpower contribution, advisor cost reduction for the diplomatic advisor, as well as a cheaper advisor, or we can go for core creation cost -5%, which is huge. We also got the relations and the trust with the Crimeans, so whenever the event triggers, they will 100% choose to become our subject. We definitely could turn the Serbians into a vassal state, but I'd rather not have to bother with that right now. I'm gonna have enough vassals once I establish my eyalets in Tunis, Mamluks, around the other parts of the Middle East, and of course around Europe, because we will start our expansion into Europe as well now. I was going to snipe over Wallachia and use them to reconquer their cores afterwards, but apparently the Austrians had the exact same idea, so now the Austrians are actually in a war against the Poles, which have been guaranteeing Wallachia. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until they finish that war, until they ravage each other's countries, and then afterwards I'm going to swoop in and attack whichever one of them is weaker. One of the most important things in Europa Universalis 4 is learning when to take advantage of opportunity. That's why I've decided to vassalize Georgia. I had an easy time increasing my relations with them. This allows me to diplomatically vassalize them, which in turn means that we can use them to reconquer the old Georgian holdings currently held by Karakoyunlu, which is a temporary alliance that we're going to be disposing of very soon as well. I'm actually taking a few years to recover my economy, my manpower, in order to get ready for the multiple wars against the Mamelukes and other nations around us. Plus, it's a great opportunity to get rid of the rebels. The Ottomans also have a unique age ability, the Ottoman Siegecraft. This has been changed once more in the more recent patches, but it is still extremely overpowered. We're going to go for that first, of course, followed up by aggressive expansion, impact reduction, and we're going to do a couple of small skirmishes around here whilst we're waiting for the truce to finish with the Mamluk. I've also called in Crimea against Theodora because I did not co-belligerate Theodora, so it is quite a little bit of aggressive expansion, which, considering Crimea has a vital interest in this province, they can take the province for themselves. Eventually, they will become my vassals anyway. It would appear as if the Poles are getting their asses handed to them by the Austrians, as they say in historical terms, and I'm all for it. One of the Ottoman Empire's most important features in this game is the ability to justify invasions. What does that do? Well, it essentially allows you to create the eyalets, the unique Ottoman vassal, anywhere in the world, as long as that nation is small enough to become an Aeolate. And I know I have yet to be using that little mechanic to its fullest extent. The reason for that is because, well, first off, I'm not really tryharding that much, and second off, I do like to have a core area of lands early in the campaign from which I can take my manpower, my income, and just have a stable economy and nation before I basically make everybody else around me Aeolates. Because that's right, boys, I am a role player deep down at heart. And as I predicted, Theodoro is going to be food for the Crimeans. I'm also going to be asking Milan to share their knowledge of Renaissance with me. Taking Shamar gives us access to Hormuz, which is currently allied to the Mamelukes, so when we declare the war against the Mamelukes, we're going to be co-belligerating Hormuz in order to take most of the coastline of the Arabian area, which will allow us access afterward into the Persian lands, which we definitely like to have a part of, since this is where a lot of the Asian trade filters through, and we want to make sure it filters into our nodes rather than anybody else's. The stars have aligned, and it is time for the Ottoman invasion of Cairo. It's also time that we take the burger loans, 1% special loans that will allow us, of course, to recruit some mercenaries. Early on, we will need to rely on mercenaries a lot more than we normally do. This will allow us to become Defender of the Faith, which gives us even more manpower and True Faith provinces. So we're now getting back 639 units every single month. Collapse of the Mamluk Sultanate, a historical event where the Ottomans were able to quickly take control of the Mamluk lands after defeating and crushing most of the nobility of the Mamelukes. If we hold Cairo for 3 years whilst at 90% war score against the Mamelukes, we get the fall of the Mamluk Sultanate, allowing us to white piece the Mamelukes and create the Aeolate of Egypt immediately. It would appear as Najd has decided to give up, and now we have complete control of their lands. Oh no, Janissaries, I'm afraid that's not possible. You can rebel as much as you want, but you're still gonna come back into the fold. Considering that Tolchu is a part of the Constantinople node, we're gonna go for the production methods, which will give us more trade power in our primary node. And I'm also gonna be accepting Renaissance. I'm paying a little bit of a premium here, but it's worth it because we now have military tech 6. Only one other nation has military tech 6, Florence, and that's it. Everybody else is primarily military tech 4 or even military tech 5. Seeing as the Ottomans, we don't really need to worry about our military since we're super overpowered as it stands. I'm gonna go for diplomatic ideas first to get the extra diplomats, as well as more importantly get the province war score cost minus 20%, followed up with admin ideas to lower the core creation cost by 25% as well, which adds up with the 25% that we have as our national ideas. So we're gonna have 50% cheaper core creation cost, and because we also have the 5% reduction from the Jerusalem city, it's actually slightly faster to get these ideas enacted. How do we fail this twice at 64%? I'm tired of this game giving me horrible RNG. I'm completely tired of it. We've sieged enough of Hormuz to be able to piece them out, and I'm only taking one province, the one area I'm interested in here to border apparently Ajam, because apparently Ajam conquered Mushasha when I was not looking. The faith of the Crimean Khanate is here, and we are going to be turning them into our tributary. Historically, the Crimeans were one of the most ruthless arms of the Ottoman Empire, and they were used times and times again against the Moldovans, Wallachians, and any of the other Orthodox and various Christian nations by the borders of the Ottoman Empire. I am from Moldova myself, and well, suffice to say that even hundreds of years later, we still fear the Crimean Tatars, and there's old stories even in the countryside where I'm from about the atrocities that were committed by the Crimean Tatars during Ottoman rule in the area of the two principalities. The fall of the Mamluk Sultanate is complete. We will have a white peace with the Mamelukes. They will be removed as historical rivals, and they will also inherit Hejaz and Syria, plus they will get the new government reform of the Aeolate government, and they will be a core Aeolate, which is a more integrated Aeolate, let's say. We also can now do the mission Subjugation of Egypt, which will give us the invasion CB on Tunis next, and we can do the Deserts of Arabia, granting us permanent claims on the entirety of the Arabian Peninsula. That means it is time for us to divide our armies into one half will be finishing the conquest of Arabia, whilst the other half will start the conquest of the Maghreb. The fact that my ally Ajam is not joining on the side of Akoyunlu tells me this is a perfect opportunity for me to clean up the borders in the eastern side of the Anatolian region, and I'm going to use what money I gained from selling titles to pay off the 4% loans I took during the war, leaving me with only 3 1% loans. Let's also not forget to give the Strong Duchies privilege, which grants 2 extra Diplo relation slots. And yes, in case you're wondering, the Aelets do not take a Diplo relation slot, so we can still get one more vassal or potential ally. We also have the option of converting the Hagia Sophia into a mosque. Of course, we shall do so because we are, after all, playing as the Ottomans. And despite that little click hurting me deep down inside, it does give us some benefits that we are obviously going to be taking advantage of. With the conquest of Shirvan, we can turn them into another one of our vassals, which we will be using to take back Kors for when we attack Karakoyunlu. This is, of course, a faith that Akoyunlu is not going to see because we will be fully annexing them clearly. The campaign in the Maghreb is going to be a little bit of a more extensive campaign. Aside from establishing an Aelet in Tunis, I would also like to take some lands into the western parts, especially would like to make Granada another one of my vassals, since they do have quite a few cores here that we can feed back afterwards from Castile as well as from Portugal. By focusing the majority of my armies on this front, I'm honestly having a very easy time. Most of the enemy armies are actually retreating together further into the west, so I'm basically just chasing them when needed. I've also increased my relations with Karakoyunlu so I can use the return core interaction where I give back some of the provinces to Georgia and to Shirvan before I cancel the alliance and attack them. I have 88 favors right now, so I should be able to get a few provinces whenever I'm at peace. I absolutely love how the AI decided to start running now. Like, what's the logic behind this? If you were expecting not to fight me, why weren't you running from before? Why did you start running after I took the fortification in Tilimsan? Guess what I'm saying is, I would like EU5 to have a slightly better AI. For the tier 3 government reform, we have a new unique Ottoman reform, the provincial government system, where we get 20% more local tax from provinces of foreign culture group from assigning pashas, as well as we get overall national tax modifier, promote culture modifier, and income from vassals. And by the way, the income from vassals plus 25. If you mix that in with some of the other modifiers you can get from national ideas and from your missions and so on, having a swarm of just Aelets really makes the Ottomans ridiculously overpowered. Taking the one province minor of Granada is honestly a really big deal for us, since it allows us not only to reconquer the cores, but it's also an easier way of attacking Castile, since we don't need to do any naval invasions after. We can just station our troops here whenever we're ready to engage them, as well as it extends overall our influence in the area and allows us to do another one of our missions, address a Firman. This probably would have been better off if I clicked it when Granada had 10 provinces, but it's fine. I don't really care about them having that much development, since the more development they have, the harder it's going to be to eventually integrate them. I did waste a little bit of my military power, but I've gotten cannons technology, which means I can have more than just 4 cannons, and that's going to come in handy since I need more for the Eastern Front and the Arabian Front. I am going to push all the way to Fez. This way I have the best fortification in North Africa, the city of Fez, which is a mountainous fort, and it is also adjacent to the Portuguese lands as well as apparently the Castilian lands, because of course those colonial scum are going to be conquering, not like us peaceful Ottoman bros that are clearly here for spreading cookies and joy. We can now establish an Aelet in Tunis, and just let this sink in for a second so you understand how powerful Aelets are in this game. We're basically taking half of the Maghreb for 38 aggressive expansion. Like, I have no words to describe how powerful this type of subject the Ottomans have is. Now that being said, I will be going for the conquest of Mazab. My peace deal with Tunis will look exactly like this. It's still only 2 nations, Tunis and Morocco in the coalition, so honestly it's basically nobody. Plus we have another mission, as you would imagine. We can make the Tunisian Aelet another core Aelet from another one of our missions, and we have the Algerian Corsairs mission as well, where we gain the exact same Aelet option against the Moroccans. So when the truce is over, we can make all of North Africa into an Aelet. Also, we have the option of creating a Tripoli Aelet in between our Tunisian and the Libyan holdings. So basically we don't need to waste admin points on this, and it's going to be significantly easier holding control over 2 separate Aelets in the north of Maghreb rather than one big Tunisian Aelet. In the Moroccan holdings that we took, we also can establish the Aelet of Sus with the lands of Aden taken. We can establish the Aelet of Yemen, or Aelet of Aden really, and we can of course feed our little Aelet the remaining parts of Yemen, Hadramaut, and whoever else is around here that is not yet a complete integral part of our nation. Also, check out how insane it is already. We've got 13 ducats we're getting just from the ALETs we have. And boy, do we have quite a few of them, actually. I think it's also time that we ask them to divert their trade towards us. Before we cancel our alliance with Karakonyulu, we're going to use the 97 favors we have with them to return Core Province. The last free holdout of the Arabian nations is about to collapse to us. I'm not sure if we can fully annex Hormuz in one war, but at the very least, we'll get the majority of the lands that we're interested in, and we'll be able to connect our lands in Mare with the rest of the northern parts of Arabia. Plus, I would actually like to get the island of Hormuz, which would allow me access into Fars afterwards. I'm going to finish the first part of this campaign here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I tried to make it a little bit more different compared to my usual runs, and I tried to explain a little bit more in detail why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you enjoyed this type of video, do consider subscribing. It would help out the channel massively, and leave a like so we can get that second part going afterwards. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.